Hi all and welcome to Promethean Bryce. This is the next video in the series of the sculpting on Blender. In this particular video we're going to be doing Wonder Woman, and I've chosen this reference again from the internet just because, as I say in all videos, it's easier to get one quickly from the internet rather than drawing yourself, and also you've got a bit more accuracy with, like, say, professionals who do it. We're just going to get straight off. Like I said, this is a video from start to finish, no editing, so forgive me if I repeat anything or if I get anything wrong. But yeah, let's get straight into it. So after I've put the reference image in, as you can see in the background, so I've done it from the back view, oh sorry, so from the back for the front view and to the side for the side view. This just helps me get the sort of correct shape and dimensions for the particular mesh. After that, I'll stick a mesh ball to the side, which has already been pre-remeshed just to make sure it's ready to be modeled. This just makes things a lot faster and easier. And then after that, it's just a case of going in, placing uh, the sphere where you need it, and then using the move tool, the elastic deform as it's called in the set, just to move it around to its particular shapes. At first, as you can see, it's just going to be getting the overall basic shape of things. So you don't need to worry about any details at this point. You're just getting a very simple basic shape, making sure it has that general outline. And you're doing, like, for example, there where you just saw, you'll do one arm, for example, then duplicate it over. Just when you do this, be careful, because the way I do it, if you're doing it the same way, you might get a problem with exact mirroring. So to do that, I do have a new technique I'll just let you in on. If you add a cube, extend the cube to the highest height, and then just put it as best in the middle you can, and then just rearrange it that way. And then extend the cube along the x-axis, if you're doing it my way, where I start everything so the x-axis is to the side, and then just increase that size, and just put the parts to the flat bits of the face. I'll explain this in future videos and tutorial videos later anyway, but if you just wanted to know how to do that, that's just a quick bit of information. And then, as always, when you've done the body, you want to be doing the hands and feet separate, just because they're a little bit more in depth. And because the base mesh of them is quite detailed, just get all the simpler stuff done so you don't have to make it over complex. So yeah, after you've done that, like I said, I'm getting the face done here. Once the basic outline of it's all done, that's when you're going to be getting your secondary set done. So once you're going back through that list of base mesh and then going over it, putting your minor details in. You can also put major details in if you want at this point. It all depends on whether you feel like you can get it done in one take. But usually, if you do another set of minor details, it's progressive. So you'll see if you need, say, more crease to make, say, a rib, or, like, for example, in here where you're doing the stomach, as it ties into that chest. I might want to rearrange the chest later. That's why I just say keep it quite simple and just do it in stages. So go for simple, medium to high sort of quality mesh, and just keep going for that shape. And I've mentioned it before in other videos. I'll say this a lot, but you want to have, say, a reference to the side where you'll have muscle mass. So you can just type in on the internet, sort of, for example, here I'd have female anatomy or muscle, just so you can get that underneath, especially with a character like Supergirl, as you can see, because she's got, in this particular reference, she's not highly muscular. Oh, Supergirl, sorry, Wonder Woman, forgive me that one. That was a previous video. She's not particularly too muscly, but muscly enough to have that sort of, say, detail to be correct. If your character isn't too muscly, you don't need to really worry about it. Your basic shape will do more than enough. Say if you're doing an anime character, you'll be absolutely fine with that sort of simplified mesh. It will look better. But like you can see here, I'm just tweaking things with the deform tool, and then adding a little bit of detail each time, say the elbow there, say the tricep and the delts at the top there. You're just doing the whole thing. You're going back and forth. I didn't say that the shoulders here, the line between the back, and you won't really need much for the neck on any of these. For example, here I've not used the reference in some cases because it was a little off, and you'll find that a lot that it'll be off. Like try and stick to one reference, either stick to the front or the side for your sizing, because if you try and do both, it's never going to work, because just by nature drawing, you're never going to have an exact, even if you took a photo, you'd have to edit it so it was exact. So you just kind of got to use your initiative, like I always say, and just eyeball it, just look around it, go away from the side view and make sure it's right. You can be as perfect as you can be, but you're never going to be 100% perfect on it anyway. So yeah, you've just got to use your knowledge of anatomy, or like for here where we're doing the face here, you got to just use your bit of imagination. Now, this is the technique where I'll use the layers and the add tools, and to take it away, to add and then to take away excess mesh. So like as if you was using a 3D sculpt. Forgive me because I can't remember the actual name of the tools, but it's the top two there. The very top one on the left hand side, that's what I use to increase mesh. So to add things, and to take it away, I'll use the one underneath. And then if you go further down, you'll see a tool called crease. And that crease is for, just like it says, any creases. So between those lips and the mouth, that's where I'd crease. I'd use the crease to get the muscle definition. Just basically anything with a really hard definition in it. Anything else, if you're adding and taking away, just use those top two. Like I said, very top one, add, second to top one, take away. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding sort of bits as I go along. So cheeks, getting that general shape of the nose, lips. Then here, this is the best technique I can think of, is if you use the mask tool to draw the shape of the eyes, invert the mask tool, and then use the take away the mesh, and then take off the mask tool, clear it, remesh, and then you've got a cut in for the eye. This just helps with the topology and if you was going to animate it, say the weight painting for eyelashes, and eyelids and stuff, rather than having it sort of fall stuck there. And it also helps you with the shape a lot more. If you try and build them out and stick them in and say boolean it takes a lot longer. B, it's unnecessary. You don't really need to do it. It's just going to look a bit messy. And then I won't always do this with characters. I sort of do them in different orders depending on how it is. But because, say, Wonder Woman here has got quite a simplified hair, I've used that same technique where I've based it in. So every time I move on to, say, a different part like clothes or hair, I'll use the same method as I used originally. So just base mesh, get slight levels of detail, then add more detail onwards. It's like I said, it's going to save you time in the long run, because if you try and just do one part and then get all the detail in it straight away, you're just going to be there for days and you're never going to know what it looks like. I haven't done it on this particular one at the moment because I wanted to get all the base mesh in first before I did it, but I will color it soon, and that just helps you get get a bit of a better feel for how things are looking. Because when it's grey and everything's sort of merged together, it can look correct. So if you just change the color, it can help you with your modeling. I did this at first with the curve tool, but I didn't think it looked very good. If I was going to give you a bit of advice, if it's sort of like anime hair, that's all very flat and sharp, I would say use the curve tool and the tools in that section. If it's thick or it's sort of detailed a lot more, I would say use the method I'm using now on the screen, where you get the mesh and just keep bringing the deform tool down to the shape, and then remesh every time you move it, just because it will sort of lock in that shape. If you didn't remesh it, you're extending this piece of mesh, and its vertices can only go so far. If you're at this point in modeling, you'll probably know what I mean by all this. sort of vertice stuff. It's like you can't extend something if there's only that mass. It's basically extending the mass and um the ability to move that mass around is the only way I can think of explaining it otherwise. But if you're in, like I said, if you're at this point, you'll probably know what I might mean anyway. And then as always, it's just going back, forth, going around, looking around. It might be a little bit too late to mention, but it's the middle button in the mouse and the alt button to go to your particular axes from straight on to the side, and then just go around with your normal tools if you're looking around the 3D space. But always have a look at the 3D space, because if you don't, it will be wrong. Because if you just rely on one side, you're not getting the big picture. So yeah, so after that, I'm just getting those extra details on the hair. Most of the time, it's a case of duplicating it. But if your character, say, got sort of off-level hair or the strands going that different ways, just duplicate that strand and then reshape it rather than completely doing it again. Sometimes, I don't know if I did it in this one, but it's sometimes easier to model, say, a basic hair shape, and then, like I've done with the sphere, keep it to one side and then drag it over and then move it to its particular shape. Again, it's all techniques just to save time, because it's not a save time get a sort of poor result. It's a same time saving time, getting a great result still at the end of the day. And that's what you want. You don't really uh you don't want to be spending too much time or wasting time, especially in this field, because if you are, say, planning to do this for a job or something, they're gonna be very time restrictive. So you're gonna need to learn techniques to speed things up. But again, you don't want to have sped up time worse result. You want sped up time same or better result. And that's what I try and constantly do while I'm doing it, and then I'm just trying to give it, say, over to you for a bit of advice to help you out. But yeah, everyone wants to sort of save that little bit of time when doing stuff, because the faster you can do it, it's great anyway. You don't want to be spending, say, an hour doing, say, the muscles in an arm, when you can do it, say, my method, stage by stage overall, and basically getting a outcome of about, say, a minute for that, instead of like whatever. And so at this point, we're at the eyes here. I used a different method now, where I've drawn it in on one that I've done recently, which will be out soon. I'm not going to say who it is yet, because I like the surprise of it being on the day. But from now on, I do the sphere mesh for eyelids and eyebrows thingies, just because it's again, it's still a basic shape. At first, I thought it was more sort of a line, an edited line, but it's not. So it's best to do that. But this way I've done it, it's quite nice anyway. I got a really good result by doing this. You can do it the curve way, where you add a curve in and then extrude the curve. But it can only stay that shape. You can't really move it around later, so it does sort of restrict you. Okay, this is the part where I said where I'm adding all the colors in. On this one and one or two or one that I've done recently, I joined them together and color them. But a bit of advice here, again, I do it first, so you don't have to. Do it either separately and take that little bit of extra time to do it, or do it as you're going along. Just because if you do it all as one, and then you say Control Select P to unjoin or ungroup, it will change um, the pivot point. And if the pivot point's changed, you won't be able to, say, go in later and add some muscle definition if you need to. It will start becoming a lot more difficult. And like I was saying before, if you want to save time and stuff, you need to have everything ready to go. So after that, I've got all the colors in. That's sort of the body done. I'm just doing some of the clothes here, and I'm using the curve method for this one, just because it's a hard surface edge and it's sort of going around something that's circular, or um, just because, like I said, anything with hard surface like a belt or a piece of armor, you want to be doing this method just because you can move it just enough to shape it, like I'm doing here. You can't really get too much into it, but you've got that hard shape and the flat edge and a smooth edge. If you did it with the organic method, it's going to go sort of everywhere. Even if you smooth it, it's going to take a lot longer to do as well. And if you want it to get sort of close to the skin or the particular item that you're trying to model around, it will just it won't work essentially. Yeah, I've tried sort of skin wrapping it and attaching it, but it doesn't work. I think there is a plugin you can use that could do that for you, but if you want to use plugins, go ahead. But I'm not the type of guy who likes to use plugins for reasons usually, because if you add plugins, they tend to mess up your original sort of software, and I want to keep it working consistently. Not to mention the fact that a plugin I won't always have. If I've got the base software, I can use that technique in any other sort of third-party software, or because at the moment I'm using Blender, which is free anyway, which is what you know. But if I go into say Maya, I can have a basic understanding of how to make that at the same rate as I've already made it. It's basically not wanting to sort of say cheat, because that the like you're not always gonna have it. If that say plugin goes away or you can't buy it again, or they don't make it for say the next version of Blender, you're kind of screwed, I guess. So after that, with these shoes, for example, you've seen what I've done there. What you do is you get your mesh tool, you draw that shape. If it's close to the skin or in the shape, say, of, again, this is a superhero, so her outfit's going to be tight to the skin and the boots are as well. So you want to get that part, grab the section which you need. So draw the shoe shape with the mesh. Make sure the mask, make sure the mask is at 100%, and then extrude it. And when you've extruded it, go into settings, make sure you apply it. That's just something I've noticed I didn't do originally. And if you do not do that, it's going to increase the polygon count, which is going to really mess up your computer speed. So again, that's a good bit of advice to have from me now to save you some time and some sort of despair, because I the Kenshin video that I just did, if you've watched that, you'll see that I talk about how I had it high and I had to redo sort of things. I learned from a mistake on that one, and I'm hoping this will help you learn from any of those mistakes that I've made. Like I said, it's trying to keep that mesh clean, because you want to have good topology. Again, if you want a job in this, you're going to need good topology skills. So it's keeping it clean, but it's also, again, every time I say this, but it's very important. The more polygons you have, or the more sort of vertices, whatever you're using, because you can use in different softwares, it'll be different things. The more your processor is going to be burning down, you're going to have more power. It's going to run harder. It's going to slow down your computer if you've not got a really strong computer. But it's also unnecessary, because if you want to do, say, this for an animation or a game, for example, you're going to need it lower poly. Even with today's technology, you will need it lower poly. So you just want to keep your remesh rate at a higher value, and just keep it as clean as you possibly can. Failing that, when you've done, what you can do is go on your modifiers, and there's a tool that's called decimate. Now that will mess up your topology, but if you were doing a game character, you can still animate it, but it would be more for like a personal project. They really won't want you to do that, say, in the industry. But if you decimate it, you can get a low poly, and things like auto rig can rig the character for you. But yeah, it'll make it low poly, so it'll look a bit more hard edged and stuff, and it will ruin your topology. But you can correct these things later, for example. So after I've done those clothes, just like I said, where you've pulled it out, done those techniques, I'm just getting those colors in and drawing those particular ones. And then what I've done afterwards is this is the animation version. So I'll always do 2 versions, and I'll save, once I've done the base of it, I'll save it out to do the pose in all the parts, but then I'll have the animation one where I'll join it like I am now. And that just joins it all, obviously makes it look like it's one mesh, keeps it clean. Every time you've rejoined it, every time you've joined it together, you'll need to remesh it, which increases the polygon count like I was talking about before. And a little tip here, which I've noticed, if it's the more parts you have together, you can actually increase the remesh rate, and it will keep it clean. Just keep an eye on it, because if there's anything like fingers here, for example, they will join together if your rate's too low. Oh, should I say too high? But it's if it's lower poly. So you just got to bear that in mind. So yeah, after that, look where we are. We are getting, so we get the nails in separately just because I noticed on the reference that she has nails, and I didn't want to sort of draw them in because it can sometimes look a little bit messy, and I wanted to keep it quite clean. So yeah, like I said, I've just joined her all together, made a one mesh like it would be, and then I've put her in a T pose because a T pose is easier to animate in general, or not to animate, to weight paint. And that's what you really want. You want to keep it easy enough to weight paint. If it was in an A pose, you're going to have a joined mesh under the armpit. So that's just why I did that. And then I forgot to do well, I didn't forget to do it. I noticed that the star on a headband actually sticks out. So what I've done is I've used a plane. I've drawn the star on the plane using the cut tool. And then I've extruded that, deleted the faces that I don't need, and extruded that to create it. So it's a little nifty little trick if you need to do something like that. So we're getting to the part now where I did the sort of the Wonder Woman sort of chest piece, which is from the logo. I did this, if you noticed, you'd see one previously that I did, but I did it with the old method and it didn't work. So as you see there, I've cut it in using that technique like I did for the star. And then I've done is I've extruded it in the parts I needed, because obviously it goes in layers. It goes 1 layer, 2 layer, 3 layer. And then to wrap it around, say, a chest, what you need to do is go into the edit mode and subdivide it. And once you've subdivided it, you can actually slightly edit it with the move tool, and you just wrap that around, say that. But if it's going around the whole body, you don't want to be doing that. It's just only if it's sort of slightly curved. And then I feel like that I got the best result out of that when I did it. And then we just sort of looked in and made sure everything looks good. And then I've attached the head there. But that's that done essentially. And then that's ready to go. So what we do afterwards is we go back to the one where I said where it's still in parts. And then we're going to pose it. I feel this is the best way to do it, rather than weight painting it and then doing it again. But if you can do that, it'll make your life easier if you say you want to do an animation with it. It'll also save you a little bit of time. But this way you can keep it clean. You can make small edits. And you don't have to know how to rig and weight paint just to get something cool. But that's why I do it in this way anyway for myself. And again, tips on to you if you want to do that. Just saves you having to learn a really difficult thing, because one of the hardest things to do in 3D animation is to actually weight paint and rig. But yeah, once you've done that, so for the Wonder Woman here, I've done a quite a basic pose, just sort of legs a bit wider, sort of power pose stance. In which case, I was able to get some of the previous clothes and reuse them, just using the elastic deform tool to, for example, here, look, where you can just move it around and just get that, rather than redoing the entire section again. Because again, it's saving time and it's also looking really good. And with this, because it's the pose version, which is either just going to stay in that it's never going to be animated, or if it's going to be printed off, you can still print it that way and it will still look good, even if it's slightly out. So again, this one's a time-saving method for something that it will work with, but it's not something you want to be doing if you was doing it for animation. You want to try and get it exact as possible. But then after you've got the clothes all together, like I said, most of this was all easy to do. You're just getting it back, and then you're doing the same thing that you did with the other one. Grabbing it all together in parts, joining it, and then re-sculpting it to make sure the mesh is all nicely like retopology. And then just adding slight sort of movements there. Like, for example, that's where the sort of bicep would move a little bit further down. Bear in mind when you do this, they're in a stationary pose. So if you do have sort of movements within the arms or legs, you've got to sort of move parts of the body. So yeah, this bit is where I'm just sort of noticing some things have gone a little bit off. So I'm just re-editing things, and then it's one of those things where you've got to, with the hands, like I said, when you join them and remesh them, it will join the fingers together if you don't have a particular setting. So like I said, the lower it is, the better, but the lower it is, the more heavy on power it is. So you've got to find a real nice balance. So try and find your sweet spot. So keep going down the list. Say, try one value. If it doesn't work, knock it down a little bit, or vice versa. Or if it works but it's too high, try knocking it up a bit. Just find your sweet spot. And then with, like I said, I've just turned a face so it sort of smiles rather than just has that plain look. And I did notice afterwards that I thought that space was empty, but it was actually a belt. So I've just re-edited the belt, which I will save as an OBJ and then put into the animation version as well when I've done this. So it's similar to the first one. I'll take the star off as well. Just give it a little bit of a crease because that's hard surface modeling. But yeah, that's basically done. Once you've say put all that together, you've got your final piece, and we'll see that in a minute. Yeah, so I hope you've really enjoyed this video. Please give it a like, share, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think, and I'll see you for the next one, which has already been made, but I've got to voice edit it and stuff. But yeah, please enjoy. Oh, and then support me.